Yo, how's it going everyone? Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon GO video. I hope your day is going really well and let's jump right into it. Alright, so right now in Pokemon GO, we have a Team Go Rocket takeover event. And with this takeover event, we saw a change to the lineup of Shadow Pokemon that you can encounter with all the team leader battles, Giovanni, as well as some of the grunts. And I have to tell you, this time around, this is probably the most goated lineup that we've had in pretty much the entirety of Pokemon GO. It's extremely rare that we have multiple of the team leader battles give you a Shadow Pokemon that is actually useful. But this time around, it seems like it's all three. Every single one of these Pokemon can be useful in some way. Some of them for PvP, some of them for PvE, and even one that is good for both. Yeah, this is probably the best Shadow Pokemon lineup that we've ever seen in Pokemon GO. So for the purposes of this video, I wanted to talk about each of the leader battles in detail and go over how you could defeat them, because if you have the right Pokemon teams ready to go as well as the right strategies, you could take down all three of these leaders and pick up the useful Shadow Pokemon that they will give you. And then do keep in mind that when it comes to leader battles, those Shadow Pokemon can potentially be shiny, so you could end up with a super rare shiny Shadow Pokemon that is actually good for Pokemon GO. So if you're lucky, you might end up picking yourself up a shiny Shadow Pokemon, and those are definitely valuable for any Pokemon GO account. The first leader that I wanted to talk about is going to be Arlo. Now, this encounter is actually not that difficult, and I would make the argument that it is probably the easiest out of all three of the team leader battles this time around. Arlo is going to come with Shadow Beldum, which, if you've been playing Pokemon GO for a very long time, you would know that that Shadow Pokemon is incredibly useful, especially when it comes to raid battles, because it's going to be the absolute best Steel type that you can have. And I would say that it's only rivaled by Duskmane Necrozma, and there's very few cases where it's actually going to be even better than Shadow Metagross. So this is definitely going to be a high priority. You will want to get yourself a high IV Shadow Metagross right now and make sure you remove frustration off of it. Now, taking down Arlo is going to be pretty straightforward. Most of the Pokemon that he brings are going to be weak against Fire types, Ground types, and Dark types, but in particular Fire types and Ground types. Those are going to be the Pokemon that are going to take down most of Arlo's Pokemon. So I suggest bringing a team of Excadrill with Ground type attacks, Tyranitar with Dark type attacks, and Reshiram with Fire type attacks. This is probably the best team that I've been using, and if you run into different alternative Pokemon within Arlo's arsenal, then you could also go with Zekrom to deal with Gyarados, or Blaziken to deal with some of the Pokemon that he brings. This is actually a very easy battle. Like, you basically just need to bring the Pokemon that's going to counter whatever Pokemon he brings out, and you're going to be good to go. Excadrill is obviously really strong against Beldum, but it's also really strong against Metagross, so that is definitely a Pokemon you should bring as your core. But when it comes to the other Pokemon, you really just want to bring the right Pokemon for whatever he brings out. For example, if he brings out Hypno as his second Pokemon, then you will want to go with Tyranitar. But if he brings out either Charizard or Gyarados, then Zekrom is probably going to be more useful. And if he brings out Scizor as his last Pokemon, then go with Reshiram or even Blaziken. All of those Pokemon are going to do really well. Now, the next leader battle I wanted to talk about is going to be Cliff. This guy is going to bring Shadow Galarian Zigzagoon, and yeah, it can potentially be shiny. Now, in terms of this boss battle, it's going to be down to whatever your best fighting type Pokemon is. This includes either Lucario or Terrakion. Those are obviously going to be the standouts, but you will also want to have a pocket ice type as well, considering that some of Cliff's Pokemon are specifically weak against ice types like Crobat as well as Venusaur. If you want a team that's set up for success against Cliff, I would suggest one that contains Lucario, Mamoswine, as well as Terrakion, but some alternatives include Primarina. That's actually a very strong Pokemon against most of Cliff's Pokemon like Aerodactyl, but you could also go with Duskmane Necrozma. That's also going to give you a lot of type coverage. Next up, let's talk about Sierra. This time around, she's going to be more fairy type focused. You will want to bring Pokemon that are strong against both Routes and Gardevoir. Gardevoir especially, that's going to be your biggest threat within her lineup. So I suggest a team that consists of Metagross, Gengar, and Groudon, and the reason why I suggest these Pokemon is because they give you the most type coverage. The one Pokemon you will want to watch out for with this team is going to be Milotic, so a good alternative that you could go with is going to be Magnezone. The reason why I say Magnezone is because it does resist a lot of fairy type attacks, but it also has that electric type attack that is going to be strong against Milotic. So this could be the way that you go about it if you come across this one Pokemon, but there are plenty of different options that you could go with that are going to be strong against that Pokemon. And then finally, let's go over Giovanni this time around. It's actually probably the most difficult encounter among all of Team Go Rocket content. It's going to come with Persian, which always hits like a truck. You just want to bring your best fighting type to take it down as soon as possible. This includes, of course, Lucario, but you could go no wrong bringing Terrakion or even Machamp. You will just want to dish out as much DPS as possible to take it down as quickly as possible, and maybe try to get it to use at least 1 or 2 shields. Now, the next Pokemon consists of either Rhyperior, Nidoking, or Kingdra. Kingdra is going to be the tricky one, and you will want to have a Pokemon ready to take that down. I would suggest having a Togekiss ready with Charm. That is going to be an easy way to take down Kingdra, but there are plenty of different options you can go with, like Kyogre with Thunder, for example. But if you get lucky enough, you might come across either Rhyperior or Nidoking as his second Pokemon, and those are actually quite easy to take down. In fact, one Pokemon deals with both of them very easily, and that is of course Swampert. So that is a very safe choice to have as your second Pokemon, because it's definitely going to dish out enough damage to take down either of those Pokemon. And then this time around, Giovanni is going to be bringing Heatran as his final Pokemon, and this is the legendary Shadow Pokemon that you are able to catch when you defeat Giovanni. This Pokemon is really strong by most metrics, but really you just want to bring a Pokemon that will directly counter it. This could include Swampert or Kyogre. Both of those Pokemon are going to be really strong, and really just about anything that's going to be good against either a steel type or a fire type, or both. That's really the only answer up against this boss. It's incredibly easy otherwise, because all of these Pokemon are not that difficult to take down as long as you bring the right Pokemon. So yeah, there you have it. This is how you can defeat all of the team leader battles along with Giovanni. Now, some general tips when it comes to taking on these leader battles: make sure you prioritize taking down their shields as early as possible. If you build up the energy to launch 2 charge attacks, make sure you use one of them, and between the little bit of latency between when they use their shield and their next attack, do a couple of fast attacks to maximize the amount of damage before you use the next charge attack. That's how you can take down most of these team leader battles with ease. It really depends on how you have that rhythm between them using their shields and how much damage you can deal. And yeah, they're all very straightforward this time around, but the Pokemon reward is incredible. So definitely fully utilize this time and defeat as many of these leader battles as you possibly can. You could get lucky and get yourself a really good shiny Shadow Pokemon of any of these Pokemon. But yeah, with that said, that's going to be it for this video. Now, let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. Is there a particular leader battle that you're going to be focusing in on this time around, or are you glad that all 3 of them have some sort of useful Pokemon? Definitely share all of your thoughts down below, and let's have a great discussion. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I am Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.